Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Today we're talking about 2 Kings chapter 1 through 4. Tomorrow we're going to talk about 2 Kings chapter 5 through 8. Now these chapters today were pretty interesting. Now when it comes to Kings, the book of Kings, it is a history book. Let's just lay it out there. There's not really an author named for this book, but Jewish tradition suggests that Jeremiah was a possible author. But whoever the author was, he states that he drew on earlier primary sources, specifically mentioning the historical record of Israel's kings and the historical record of Judah's kings. Now, date-wise, 2 Kings covers the years between 852 BC and 562 BC. Many people say that it was probably completed sometime between 562 BC and 539 BC, somewhere in that vicinity. That was when it was completed totally. In summary, 2 Kings continues the story from 1 Kings and it summarizes the histories of the rest of Israel and Judah's kings. Some food for thought for reading 2 Kings. Well, many people think that they're okay with God. Yeah, me and Jesus, we got this own thing. We got our own thing going. And, by their own standards, they're good. But the book of Kings teaches us a very important thing. And that's that God evaluates people by one criteria. And that criteria is, did they do right in the eyes of the Lord? And God's verdict against the very last king of Judah should be a warning to us all. We'll read about that in chapter 24. A takeaway that I got from reading all of 2 Kings was that God's punishment often doesn't occur immediately. This does not mean that we're not going to be punished, but it does mean it's probably going to come eventually. God's delay is usually because of our salvation. He's given us a chance. He's given us time to repent in most cases. And if you don't, then his punishment is sure to come. So as we jump into 2 Kings chapter 1, we see about Ahaziah. He gets sick and he dies, just like Elijah said he would. We move on to chapter 2, and this is when the time came for the Lord to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind. Well, Elisha was like, "What? Are you sure today's the day God's going to take you?" And Elijah said, "Yes, I'm sure. Just be quiet. I'm sure." And Elisha's like, "You sure? You positive? Yes." Multiple times he said, "Yes, I'm sure. Be quiet. Hush, hush, hush. Be quiet." So he keeps pestering about it, and he keeps following him around. He's saying, "I'm going over here, you're not." But he's like, "Yeah, I'm going with you." "Okay, come on with me." Well, they get to the Jordan River, and Elijah takes his mantle, and he slats it down on the ground, and it parted the Jordan River, both to the right and to the left. And here's a depiction of water being parted again. This is actually the fourth time that God has helped part the water for someone to cross. I found that very interesting. And then as they continued walking and talking, it happened just as Elijah said. That chariot of fire comes screaming out the sky and picks him up and carries him off in a whirlwind. And that happens in chapter 2, verses 11 through 12 there. So as he's going up in the air, as you can see, his mantle falls from the sky, and Baldy here, as they call him here in a moment, grabs the mantle and picks it up. Well, he's a little ill about this, and he's a little ill-tempered about it, and he's got mad, but he's got this. He picks up the mantle that had fallen. He's torn his clothes because he's a little ill about what just happened. He took the mantle of Elijah, and he dropped that Elijah had dropped, and he hit the water with it. When he hit the water himself, it also parted. The fifth time that God has parted the waters for someone in the Bible. If you don't remember what those 5 times were, I'll go ahead and give you a little reminder here. The 5 times were, number 1, in Genesis chapter 1, when God separated the waters. Number 2, when Moses parted the waters in Exodus 14. God did that for Moses. The 3rd time was Joshua and Israel crossing this river, the Jordan River, chapter 3. And it continues on to chapter 4 as as it were. And then the fourth time, of course, was here with Elijah parched the water over the Jordan, and then Elisha parched the water at the Jordan River. God does that 5 times for these men. That is fascinating to me. I found that interesting. And then, of course, he gets across there, and this is when the kids are calling him Baldy, calling Elisha Baldy, and he gets the bears after him. Now, some people make a little bit too much out of this. He said he turned around and looked at him, cursed him in the name of the Lord. Then 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the children. It doesn't say it killed any of them. Mauling doesn't necessarily mean you get killed by a bear. It means you get injured by a bear, or by the claws and being beat up by the bear. So they may or may not have died, but it doesn't necessarily say they died. They could have just been wounded rather than killed. Some people say that they were killed. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Then there's this blurb about Israel's King Joram. He was not a good dude. And then we talk about Moab's rebellion against Israel. And this wasn't as important to me as the beginning of Elisha and his ministry and his life as a prophet starts. Yep, that's Baldy right there. You know what? He looks kind of like Patrick Stewart in that picture. Oh, wait. I think Patrick Stewart played him in the movie. Wasn't there a movie called Elisha that Patrick Stewart was in? I don't know. Maybe look that up. Anyway, the important part that I took out of this, chapter 3 and chapter 4, was all the different miracles that he started working as he went through here. And how he basically said, here's what's going to happen in this rebellion, and then it did. The widow's oil multiplied. He said, basically, take this bucket of oil you've got and separate it in all these smaller containers, go sell it. You're going to have plenty of money to pay off your debts, and then you can live on the rest of it. And that's exactly what happened. The hospitality that a woman showed to him, and of course he says to her that this time next year you're going to have a son, and she's like, no, there's no way, my husband's too old. A year later she has a son. It's just this miracle. Then another miracle of him saving the son's life, bringing him back to life after he had died, saving people from a deadly stew, how he multiplied bread. All this is done through chapter 4, and I found those miracles, those beginning of all these miracles that happened that God did through Elisha. I just found it very fascinating. I hope you enjoyed this today. If you have, click the like button and the subscribe button. Of course, click the little jingle bell so you get notified the next time I upload a video, which will be tomorrow for another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Because after all, ain't nothing wrong with bald dudes, is there?